Today we're going to talk about the truth about moving out, the realities of living alone. I just recently moved out almost a month ago, which is actually insane. I moved out of my parents' house after living there for all 21 years of my life, and I moved out alone. So this has been a whole new journey for me. I feel like in this short amount of time, I have already learned so much about moving out, myself, living alone. I have also hurt myself countless times. It's going very interestingly. Lots of new things that I've learned, and I wanted to answer all of your questions. I asked you guys on Instagram to ask me some, and knowing you all, I just know the questions are gonna be good. 3,000 questions, maybe more. Amazing. Okay, we've got a lot to discuss. We're gonna be here for a minute. A little background for context, I never had the experience of living away from my family. I never had the college dorm experience, so this was all extremely fresh. That's the context. Let's begin with the questions. Do you get lonely? I, so far at least, have not experienced loneliness, which I think was something that I was definitely worried about. Obviously, when you live with your family, you're used to having noise in the house. Even if someone's not home, you just know that someone is coming home. And when your family is home, even if you're alone in your room, there's a certain comfort to knowing that you could just go downstairs and talk to someone. I don't have any pets. I don't have a dog. I don't have a cat. And I'm basically just all by myself here. But interestingly enough, I have not felt lonely. I'm sure there will be times when I do, but even prior to moving out alone, I knew myself and I've always loved spending time by myself. I also never really grew up with a crazy amount of siblings. I only have one sister and she moved out a long time ago, so I've kind of felt like an only child in a way for a while, and I just feel like because I am pretty independent that it's just allowed this whole transition from living with my family and a dog to being completely alone really natural, which has been really nice. A tip I do have if you do feel lonely is having background noise. I personally always have either a podcast playing, maybe some music, and it really fills the empty silence. I am okay with some silence, but throughout the whole day, I do like having noise. Sometimes I'm talking to a family member, a friend, so if you ever are feeling super lonely, I definitely recommend reaching out to someone you love and talking to them. Will I still be able to impulse shop and buy things randomly? I feel like I have never been more aware of what I'm spending. When I was living at home, I never really thought twice about buying clothes or treating myself to certain things because I wasn't paying rent. I was literally living at home for free, which was amazing. But in a way, I think I had certain spending habits that now that I've moved out and I have adult bills, which is still so weird, I'm definitely more conscious. I never realized how much grocery shopping costs. It is astonishing how much that adds up, and I never used to do all the grocery shopping at my house. My mom did it, and so I never realized how quickly things add up. And I feel like when you have your own place, there's constantly things you need to buy to survive. So in my head, I'm like, should I buy more clothes or should I put it towards things I actually need? And I definitely feel like my priorities have shifted. Am I still buying clothes? Yes, it's definitely slowed down. I feel like my perception of what I want to spend my money on has definitely changed and my priorities with that have shifted. But back to the question of being able to impulse shop and buy things randomly, I think it depends how you handle your money. I definitely think it's good to practice restraint a little bit, maybe. Everyone's different with their money and everyone wants to spend their money in different ways, and you're allowed to spend your money how you want it. But I definitely think once you do move out, you kind of prioritize spending money on different things. Why did you not want a roommate for your first time moving out? I feel like I know myself well enough and I would have not thrived with a roommate. One, because I would never move in with a close friend because I feel like 9 times out of 10, it never works out. And I don't know, I never really had someone that I've ever been like, oh my gosh, I want to live with you. Even my boyfriend, I got tons of questions that were like, why didn't you move in with Connor? Why don't you want to live with a man? Personally, I just didn't find it fitting to have a roommate for me personally and for the lifestyle that I do have. I'm very blessed and grateful that I can afford to have my own place and fund it by myself and not have to split rent. I just know myself. I don't think I would thrive. I think I would decompose with that constant, I don't want to say interaction, because I feel like some roommates have really good boundaries of being like, your space is your space, mine is mine. I don't think I would be happy with a roommate, and I'm definitely very happy living alone, so I know I made the right decision with that. What are some costs that you weren't expecting to have to pay, or things you didn't think about? Literally everything. I feel like when you live at home, when I lived at home, I would always have an abundance of, this is very random, but like a perfect example is tissue boxes. Even when I ran out, I would go back in a few hours and it magically reappeared. But no, that was my mom replenishing the tissues or buying more toilet paper, things like that, toothpaste. You don't realize how much you need just for basic human survival, I guess. That's very dramatic. Basic necessities, I guess. I just never thought about, like, all of the things that go into a household, I suddenly have to buy for myself and notice when things are running low. And for me, that has just been so weird. I literally have a Target shopping list that is actually never ending because things are always running out. You always realize you need new things. And especially when you live alone and you're not splitting the cost with someone else, it really does add up. And so that has definitely been a little bit of a shocker. How do you not get scared at night? I got a lot of questions like this on if I feel safe, how do I feel safe, especially living alone as a woman. I definitely feel very comfortable here. The security is so good, which makes me feel very comfortable. It's 24-hour security, and just the building in general feels very safe. I feel like if I didn't feel safe, I would always be on edge, and I definitely wouldn't have moved into some place that I didn't feel super comfortable and safe. I have good locks on my door, so I feel safe with that. I close the balcony door at night and I lock it. And other than that, I just feel super comfortable, which is very good. I feel like when you are a woman living alone, it can definitely be scary, but I don't know, it's definitely good to practice caution and make sure that everything is secure, that there's nowhere people can enter. But I feel like I don't really have that issue since I do live in such a secure building. If I lived in a house, I would definitely freak out. That's why I didn't want to live in a home by myself. With a house, I would have to think about, is someone in the backyard? Is someone in the driveway? Like all of these different doors and entryways that I need to take care of. And I don't know, I feel like I would definitely be a little spooked if I lived in a house by myself, which is why I don't. Will you ever call your apartment home? I definitely think I will. It's definitely already starting to feel a lot more like home than it did when I initially moved out. Obviously, it was empty. I had never lived by myself. I was used to having people in my family around. So it was definitely weird at first. It felt like an extended hotel stay in a weird way. But the more time I spend here and the more of myself I put into this apartment with the furniture, with the decor, there's just little touches that make it feel so homey to me. I had my first friend over for dinner last night and I made her pasta and we literally talked for 4 hours while I was cooking her a meal. That was the first time I was like, this kind of feels super like home. So I feel like if you struggle with making a place feel like home, definitely creating a space that feels like yourself with decor, with certain little touches, I think can really make a big difference. What did my parents think? They are so supportive. They're literally the best. They were, I don't want to say ready, but they had accepted that I wanted to move out when I was literally 18 and I was like, I'm gonna live in LA and there's nothing you can do about it. They supported me through that. Obviously that did not happen. Thank God. That would have been a mess. But they are just so supportive, and that was 3 years ago, and I've definitely matured so much in the last 3 years. I know they feel that I'm ready and I feel that I'm ready, and so they definitely trust me and they know that I'm super happy and I'm super ready for this. So I think them knowing that I'm at peace with it and that I'm ready and excited for it makes them feel good about it. It is kind of sad being the youngest child because once you leave, your parents are empty nesters. And I was talking to my sister about this because there's only 2 of us. So when she moved out, it was kind of like, okay, you know, I'm going to be living at home for a while. It's fine. But now that I moved out, being the youngest child, I feel so bad, even though I know they're fine. They have Coda, our lovely dog, who is literally the light of my life. I know they're fine with it, but I do definitely feel like sad sometimes leaving home. How did you decide where to live? I went back and forth so many times over the last year of being like, I'm moving to New York and absolutely nowhere else, being like, I would never want to move out in Hawaii. Why would I move out to Hawaii when I can live at home for free and not pay bills and still be happy? For a while, I really thought I was gonna move to New York City, which maybe one day I will. I would love that, but right now, for my first move, I think if I moved halfway across the world, I would kind of be miserable in a way. I obviously love New York City. I have family there. My sister lives there, but the closer the time came that I wanted to move out, and the more I visited New York City, I was like, I don't need to live here right now. I feel like on the internet, sometimes there is a pressure to move out somewhere crazy cool outside of your home state. And I don't know, I came to the realization that I have the rest of my life to try living in a new city, but for my first time moving out, moving in Hawaii felt right. And while I definitely could have lived at my parents' house a few years longer and lived for free and been happy there, I just felt like it was the right time for me. I feel like I wanted to spread my wings and I was just ready for a new chapter to begin. And that's kind of how I decided to move here. I feel like there was so many different options. I've always wanted to experience living in an apartment. That has been my biggest dream for so long, is to experience what life is like living in an apartment, and that's what I'm doing, and I'm so happy doing it. Kind of relating to that, I got a question: why would you rent and not buy? Everyone has different opinions on renting versus buying. I obviously know there's so many benefits to buying, because when you're renting, a lot of people see it as throwing your money away and never getting it back. And I definitely agree to a certain extent, but also I feel like I'm paying for this experience, for this growth, for this chapter, and I don't want to settle down and buy a place yet. Even if I wasn't gonna live there, I'm just not ready for that. And I think some people are confused on why I wouldn't buy a house. I do not want to live in a house by myself. I'm not ready to live in a house. I'll live in a house when I'm much older, few years down the line. I wanted apartment life, and I honestly don't know where I'm gonna go over the next few years. I might stay here, I might go somewhere else, who knows? At this point last year, I never would have thought I would move here and stay here and live in town, but here we are. Plans are always changing. Honestly, who knows what's gonna happen, and I want to be able to have the flexibility of, I have this place for a year, and by the end of the year I can reevaluate. Do I want to move? Do I want to stay? And I feel like I wouldn't have really had that freedom with a place if I owned it. What do you do all alone in your free time? I'd imagine there's so much and I'd be bored. Somehow I am never bored. I feel like there's always something to do, whether I'm working, whether I am doing my own things that I like to do in free time, like reading. And honestly, when you have your own place to take care of, there's always something you can do. And sometimes I definitely do get the feeling of, what am I doing? I've completed all the things I need to do. What do I do now? That's when I'll just hang out. Maybe I'll make plans with a friend. Maybe I'll go out. Sometimes if I have a ton of free time, I'll just take the short drive home and visit my family, visit my dog. I feel like I've never personally had the issue yet of having too much free time. If anything, sometimes I feel like I don't have enough free time. Are you nervous about not having curtains? So, a lot of you have definitely noticed that I just have these big ass windows with no coverage. That is not by choice. I am not so patiently waiting for them to get installed, but it's not really in my control. I'm waiting for my property manager and the owners to contact someone to get them installed because they want to get custom ones. I honestly don't know. I have to ask if I can install my own curtains in the meantime while we wait for those, because during the day, you can't see inside. It's very well tinted and covered, so during the day you can't see inside, but at night when it's dark outside and I have lights on in here, I know you can see in. I'm on a pretty high floor, so there's no one, like, especially from the ground, that can see in, and I'm far away enough from other buildings that they'd have to have binoculars, which would be extremely scary. But at some point, hopefully soon, I will have curtains/blinds for a little more privacy. How do you deal with homesickness? I get anxious whenever I think about it. The first 2 nights that I moved here, I had huge meltdowns about leaving home. Obviously, it's such a weird transition and you almost feel guilty for being sad because it should be an exciting time and people always talk about moving out like it's only this exciting thing, but it can also be really sad and hard to let go of the last chapter of your life, especially when you never moved out before and you have never experienced being away from your family. It can be really hard, and I didn't really know how to process that. When I first moved out, I was like, oh my gosh, my childhood's over. It's never coming back for the rest of my life. I'm just adulting and I'm never gonna live with my parents again, and I'm never gonna feel like a child really again, which really freaked me out. But when I do get homesick, which isn't too often, and I'm in a lucky enough situation that I can literally go drive and see them in a pretty quick amount of time, I will just go home. I try to visit home once a week. It's honestly been like twice a week, just because I'll go home for Amazing Race night, which is every Wednesday. I go and watch that with them, and usually on Sundays I'll try and go home. But it's really convenient because it is so close. If there's no traffic, it's maybe 25 minutes. If there is traffic, 45 minutes to an hour, but even that isn't super bad. Sometimes it is weird not being able to ask your mom to make you a sandwich. And it's pretty sad because my mom used to make me great sandwiches, and now I have to make them by myself. That's been the hardest thing about living alone, is I have to keep myself alive by making all of my own meals every day. How did you know you were ready to move out? For me, every time I've ever wanted to move out, I feel like it had always been for the wrong reason. But this last year, nearing the end of 2021, I just felt ready. It felt so natural, so normal. The thought of it wasn't for any reason other than I just felt inside that I wanted to take the next step in life. And the feeling just came so naturally, and that's how I knew. Was it more or less expensive than you expected? I knew going into this that I was going to spend more money than I ever have in my life because I have bills that are recurring, and I've never had that before. Living in Hawaii is crazy expensive. It is insane, but my family lives here. My friends live here. My boyfriend lives here. My life is here. When people have asked me, why wouldn't you move to somewhere cheaper? What would I do in Texas? I say Texas because apparently Texas is a lot cheaper than Hawaii. It's so expensive. I'm very lucky that I could even move here and financially support myself, which is amazing. It was definitely more expensive than I expected because prior to moving out, I knew in my head Hawaii was expensive, but once I started apartment hunting, I was like, plus the fact that food is more expensive here. Isn't rent and handling your own finances really hard? Absolutely. They don't teach you this stuff in school, which brings up a really big issue that I wish was talked about more, and I wish there could be a change. The things we genuinely need to know in life, I've only learned through other people, my parents who are knowledgeable, luckily, the internet, but school taught me y equals mx plus b and the mitochondria is the powerhouse of a cell. How is that going to help me figure out how to pay taxes, how to pay rent? I do think school is important. I'm not shitting on schools, but there should be a class that teaches you how to exist in the real world, because for the most part, you kind of just have to figure it out yourself. Do you ever think somebody is chasing you every time you turn out the lights because you are alone? I didn't, but now I might because you planted that in my head, so thank you. This is a really interesting one. How to feel motivated stepping out of the house. I find this interesting because there have been points where it's midday and I'm like, I have not left the house yet. Am I going to at some point today? And there's never been a day when I have not stepped foot out of this apartment. It's definitely important to me to get out once a day, whether that's going to the gym, going to work out, going to see a friend, going to the store. Just getting out is so important. And her question of how to feel motivated to is making a plan for the day. Even if it's something as small as going out for a walk to get coffee, getting out of your place is so important to just get some fresh air, get out of this space, because if you stay in one space for too long, it can definitely feel claustrophobic in a way, but it also is easy to isolate yourself a little too much. And I feel like it's definitely doable to leave once a day, even if it's only for a few minutes, maybe it's for longer. I motivate myself to do that by knowing that I would not be able to function if I was just inside of these walls all day. How do you create structure and a schedule for yourself? I'm definitely still trying to figure that out. I don't really have that much of any routine lately. I'm slowly building them, but I think if you want to have a solid routine, writing it out can be so helpful, and being realistic about what you can accomplish, what you want to do in your routine is super helpful, because when you live in a new space and you're thrown out of your normalcy, for me, I was like, what do I do? Everything was thrown off when I moved out because I was in a whole new environment. So definitely writing it down, I feel like would really help. Do you think moving out has made you more responsible / independent? Even after 1 month, I feel myself changing in such a beautiful way. And there's a certain power to knowing that I can do things by myself and I can exist by myself, which is such a great thing. I feel so empowered. I have built pretty much every single piece of furniture in this house that had to be built all by myself, which did indeed give me a slight bit of a complex, but not in a fat ego type of way, but I just feel so empowered knowing that I can live alone. I can take care of myself, and I've definitely found comfort and empowerment in that. So I definitely do feel more independent and responsible. Do you like doing laundry? I find it super therapeutic. I don't know why. I don't know why either, but chores are so fun. I'll pop on Gossip Girl and romanticize the shit out of cleaning my apartment. So, what were your expectations versus reality? I feel like my expectation was that it was just going to be only exciting, only fun, only amazing, but there was definitely a learning curve because I feel like people on the internet don't talk about how hard it is to move out of your parents' house, how hard it is to close a chapter on your life that was so special. And I don't know, I cried a lot more than I thought I would have, just because what I watched on social media of people moving out, it just seemed so exciting. But I'm a very deeply emotional person, and so my reality moving out was half fun, half what is going on. How much time did you spend searching for the right place? A very long time. What if you hear a noise? Are you comfortable with silence? Yes and no. I think it depends on my mood. I mentioned earlier that I typically have music, a podcast, or a show playing, but there are some times when I do just open the windows, I'll let the city sounds kind of fill the air, and even though there's no one else talking and it's just me, sometimes I really enjoy that, especially if I'm like reading a book or something, or I'm just in that mood. I would say sometimes I'm comfortable with silence. It really depends. Honestly, I got this question a lot as well. What the hardest part about moving out has been, it has been cooking. I was spoiled living at home. My mom was an amazing chef and she cooked a lot. So I really don't have that many recipes in my repertoire yet. That is one of my biggest goals. I can make a killer pasta and I'm learning how to make chicken, but I'm hoping to expand on that. It definitely is hard though, feeding yourself throughout the day and having no one else to make something for you, take the load off a little bit, because when you make food, you have to prepare it. You have to buy the groceries first of all. Oh my gosh. You have to prepare it, which when you're already hungry, the last thing you feel like doing is putting in physical effort, and then you have to clean up after yourself. So that was definitely a little bit of a rude awakening. Do you eat a lot of junk food because now you can? This was something that I was originally so excited for. I was like, I can literally buy whatever I want. I can have all of my own snacks. I can finally have the desserts and the chocolate and the candy that I want in the house. And I shocked myself. I did get a few desserts. Obviously, I do have some cookies in the pantry because I love sweets. Do not get it twisted. But I feel like since I've kind of made living a healthier lifestyle more important to me, I just didn't really have the desire to only grab junk food, because every time I eat junk food and crap all day, I feel like crap. I feel so good when I'm eating nutritious foods, and obviously balance is so important. Like I said, I have chocolate, I have cookies, I have some good snacks, but I didn't go crazy like I thought I would. I don't know if it's too personal, but do you have another job, or is social media your full-time job? Social media is indeed my full-time job. It is something that I've been doing for 8 years now. I've been making money from it for 3 years. That basically sums it up, because this video is literally so long. Let me know if you liked this style of video, because I would love to do more in the future. I love talking to you guys. Thank you for listening. If you are still here, comment down below the lemon emoji so I know who the real ones are. I love lemon water. It's my favorite. I am so tired of talking. I hope you enjoyed. I know you guys have been loving the vlogs, which makes me so happy. There are so many more apartment vlogs coming up, but I thought it'd be nice to catch up. And obviously you guys had a lot of questions for me. I hope I answered the ones that you wanted me to answer. If you ever do have any questions, make sure you follow me on Instagram, because I do the question boxes pretty often and I love to chat with you guys. How crazy is it that I'm sitting in a chair because I got furniture? I hope you enjoyed this literal short film. I'm sorry it's so long.